everybody, and welcome back. It's Shamika. Okay, so I've switched up my backdrop just a little bit. So welcome back. Welcome back. It's Shamika, the NOSA group creator and founder. And today we're going to be talking about and continuing our conversation about your frequently asked questions. So this is part 4. As I mentioned before, if you do have questions that I haven't covered already, feel free to drop them in the comment section and I'll cover them at the very end. We are about on number, I want to say we're at 15 questions. So we're going to do 15 to 20 today. And then probably close to the end of the month, we'll hit our official 30 questions, 30 days that we did back in 2018. For those of you guys who don't know, I created the Nurse on Staffing Agency group back in 2017. So we are hitting our first 5 years and I'm excited about it. And we're also doing our first convention in Atlanta, Georgia, August 19th through the 21st. And I'll share more details as we get closer to it. As always, if you have a chance, if you're like me and totally in love with Facebook, join our Facebook group. So our Facebook group is an amazing, active community of nurse on staffing agency owners, along with those who are interested in getting into that community. So I'm excited, guys, today because not only is it Tuesday again, but it's February 1st and it is Black History Month. So I'm representing my cute little melanated top from Target from a Black designer. So I'm excited to be wearing it and supporting other people of color in our communities and business. There's so many layers to business. So sometimes business is business to business, and then sometimes it's business to client. Neither one is more important than the other. And I think that's kind of be some of the topics we're going to talk about today as we go into our getting started FAQ session. If you don't, feel free to check us out online. So we're on all social media platforms. We are on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, and of course here on YouTube. So definitely feel free to follow us and follow that content there. So, all right, if you guys don't have anything for me, you can always drop questions in the chat box or the comments. I'm going to go ahead and get started. So we are starting with number 15. Let's get going. And I think we last stopped off and we talked a little bit about partnerships and what that should look like. A couple of tidbits on partnership, because that's actually something that's come up outside of the group from people that I've spoken to. And I tell people I started with a business partner, but it's really important to make sure that whether it's a business partner, anybody you're doing business with, that you really take out the time to communicate expectations. So if there's anything I've learned in the past 5 years in running an agency with a partner and running an agency without a partner is the importance of communicating. And to the extent that it's even something that I have been working on the last year and will continue to work on is being an effective communicator. Because I think I'm an effective communicator, but based on the experiences that I've had, it's indicated that maybe there were some areas of improvement there. But anyway, let's get going, guys. Our first question is about my favorite thing, which is marketing. So how do you market the business? What does that look like? And I think I probably touched on a couple of things. So I'm going to scoot down a little bit because I believe I touched on it. So I think we're at day 25. Sorry about that. And on day 25, we talk about how to get started. So this is an easy one. So we're going to delve into an extra question after this. But the process of getting started with any business really should start with a plan. Taking out the time, whether it be, hey, I'm going to do a weekend, I'm going to do 6 months, I'm going to do 3 months, and really developing a quality business plan is helpful. And it's not to say that it has to be something in stone to say, hey, I'm only going to run my business here, I'm only going to do this in this way, as much as it should be a roadmap that kind of guides you through your waves and ups and downs in your business, kind of say, hey, these are our monthly goals. This is our intention. This is why we transition from employee to employer, to kind of just keep you on track overall. But some of the things you'll need, of course, is your business license. So license to do business in the state that you're living in or the state that you reside in. So for the most part, you'll be getting in touch with your Secretary of State to start that process, but it can be look and feel a little bit different in different areas. So for some areas, you may have to touch with your Department of Health. You may have to set up as a nurse agency. So doing that research is important to make sure that you're headed in the right direction, just because unlike other industries, there isn't really a across the board one way to do it depending on which state you're in. So it looks different in different states. Some states require commercial properties, some require an application that includes policies and procedures. Others may ask that you register the business as a nurse agency. Others may also say that they want you to set the business up through Department of Health and not your Secretary of State, or in addition to your Secretary of State. So all those things are factors. I think I touched last time on the states that do that, but I will drop those states that have special requirements here in the comments below when we finish out this video. But get your business license in your state. Your Secretary of State is always a great first starting point. The other thing is any additional things that you may need. Commercial space, special licensure, get that as well at the same time. The other thing is you want to get your EIN, your employee identification number. That process is easy. It's a one-stepper. It's quick. Typically, the turnaround is 24 to 48 hours. And you need your license from your state first, that you're doing business in that state prior to being able to get the EIN. The next one is your business insurance. So business insurance and staffing can be a little bit more layered than other industries. So you always want to have, which most businesses have, is your general and professional liability insurance. But you also need, and sometimes it can be state specific, your workers' compensation. So that's something, like I say, some states don't require it, others do. But as an industry standard, you do need workers' comp. And then from there, usually the next question is, well, should I be a 1099 or should I be a W-2 employer? That's a whole separate video that we'll touch on later in the year, but it's something to think about. But I tell people this about the 1099 W-2 debate. It's not something that you typically can make as an employer, versus it's really based in how and what type of work that person is doing. So how they're working, where they're working, the involvement they have with the client, and all those types of things really matter. But I leave that up to the tax professionals and the lawyers to go in depth, but I will do a quick overview probably towards the end of the month to touch on it. As well, you want to make sure that you set up your business entity. And that's also a great question around, well, what type of structure should my business be? Should it be an LLC, an S Corp, a Corp? And that's a personal decision. It just depends on what you want to do with the business. And I always tell people, talk with the professionals about those types of questions so that you make sure that you're going in the right direction and you have a frame of reference, because what worked for me may not work for you. You know, what works for a partnership may not work for a person that's running their business solo or that wants to run their business as an S Corp. So nonetheless, either way, the first few steps of getting started is establish your entity, license your business in your state, determine any special qualifications they may have or additional qualifications or requirements they have in your state to get started as a staffing agency. Then, of course, start looking into your insurance, your general and professional liability insurance, along with your workers' comp. Question number 2. I'm going to say 1, 2, but I think this is 26. What is a VMS and how do they work? So vendor management systems, I think surprisingly for some people, are a part of every industry. I don't think that they're that new to healthcare. I think it's something that people don't realize kind of exists on the back end. And vendor management systems, and we're going to do a video on it, are kind of third parties. So they operate a system, a managed service provider, and I know I probably will confuse you guys, but I'll try to keep it simple. Has clients like facility A, B, and C, and then those clients post their jobs into a vendor management system. So it's just a computer system. The MSP, who usually runs the vendor management system, can have multiple clients. So they may have clients in this state, they may have them in Delaware, in Florida, in multiple states. As an agency, your part, or the most important part, I think, is to find out what types of clients they have. Of course, you want to work with a MSP, VMS that has clients that can meet your needs for your employees. And then secondly, find out the process. So what is the process that particular VMS, MSP requires for you to get access? Traditionally, it can go from very basic. So it can be like, as long as you're insured, you have experience in the business, and you have the proper insurances and W-9, you're able to entry. Some other may have specific requirements on your insurance limits. They may ask that you be joint commission. They may ask that you be in business over a year. So some of that can vary. Nonetheless, once you're able to get in whichever system, you get access to the client list and client opportunities. So that's the goal. And like I said, we'll do another separate video. So for these two questions, we'll do a separate video on it just to kind of cover more things. But like I said earlier, vendor management systems, or MSPs, or managed service providers, have been around in every industry. They operate in tech. They also operate in the local and federal government side of things. So they're not really new. I think that most people don't realize that it's happening in the healthcare industry. Okay, on to some fun questions. What new habits do I need to form or develop to be successful as a healthcare staffing business? This is a great question, because what you don't know, but it could be harmful. So I put number one as find out what you don't know. And sometimes that could be trying. But in business, if I don't know how to do accounting or to have a clear understanding of accounting, that's something that every business does. You know, if I'm not good at sales, or I don't feel comfortable doing sales pitch, that's something that's businesses across the board. That's not specific to healthcare staffing, but it's a skill set that you would need whether you're in healthcare staffing or not. What other types of skills I would think about is organizational skills, leadership skills, information technology skills. Like if you're not tech savvy, you kind of know that before you started your business. So you want to figure out what you don't know. And then at that point, ask questions. There's a level of business that is consistent no matter the industry. So asking questions to get understanding, attending here at YouTube University is always great. Mentorships, group mentoring, connecting with your local small business development center. They help a lot with creating a business plan, doing budgets and profit and loss, and establishing what your profit margins should be, how much you should pay out, how to understand the process of invoicing clients and managing your back office or your operational staff, talking to people, having difficult conversations. So SCORE and Small Business Administration all do a great job, along with YouTube, to make that happen. So spending time there, of course, seeking advice from experienced people. And that could be the form of mentors. That could be in the form of internships, collaborations or partnerships with people. Those are all great ways to kind of get advice and experience from people. And when you're getting advice and experience, especially in a business that you haven't done before, you want to make sure that you're open-minded. So you're open to receiving feedback. In some instances, it might be constructive criticism, but nonetheless, actually getting out there and talking with someone is key. The next thing is get organized. In starting our healthcare staffing agency, I was the busiest I've ever been, but I wouldn't do it any other way. I was working 16-hour days, and I've talked about that many times because people don't realize what that feels like when you're just like, oh, I just want to work for myself many times. And if you're not ready for that, you really, really need to be organized, because it becomes like a second, third baby in your family, in your personal life, in your professional life, and it can be extremely time consuming. So getting organized, having a calendar, you need to know what's happening on your days. You need to know, hey, if you're like me and it's not something that it's not a place I got to immediately, but I'm fairly organized prior to the agency. Hey, I know on Mondays I'm doing marketing stuff. You'll see a post go out for marketing from me every Monday. I know on Tuesdays I'm in meetings. On Wednesday, Thursdays, I have a lot less meetings. I'm doing calls, following up on things. And then Friday is kind of a wind down. So I don't do as much of the operational stuff on Fridays. So nonetheless, I know what's happening in the business on a day-to-day basis and kind of what the theme is, because that's something that I'm implementing for my team, is that we have a theme for the day and where I can fit people into my calendar and where I cannot. So getting organized, Google Calendar is my friend. CRM is my friend. It's important. It helps me manage my time and allows me to spend a lot less of my time being busied by tasks that either other people can do or technology can do for me. And that was one of my goals for 2021. And I definitely hit it, sending people links to schedule things. No longer going back and forth with people about setting up a time. This is the time that I have available, whether it be for interviews or follow-up meetings or sessions. This is the time that I have available. You can click here and pick a time that works for you. Creating reminders, whether it be in calendar events or for things that I have to take care of. That's really helpful. Managing your time. That's the next one. If you're not good at time management, find an accountability partner that can help you with that. If you're not good at marketing or sales or accounting, find an accountability partner, somebody that can help you with that. If you're not good at setting your goals, find an accountability partner who can help you with that. And that doesn't have to be someone who's even in the same industry. It doesn't have to be someone who's in a close vicinity to you. As long as they have the same common goal and thought process, that's way more important. Most of my accountability partners are hundreds of miles away from me, but we agreed to get on the phone every Friday or every Monday and kind of touch bases about what's happening with each of us. Don't procrastinate. Or waste time, do it now. That's key. You don't really have tomorrow necessarily. And in doing some things tomorrow, you may miss out on an opportunity today. So just like I said, I'm going to do these 30 days with you guys. Hey, I'm going to be here every Tuesday. And I'm going to try to hit the same time block so I can hit the same people, but you can always catch us in replay. But valuing your time, because you want other people to value your time as well. So don't procrastinate or waste time. Do it now. Keep at it. Don't give up. Know that failure is not an option. So my thought process on a lot of that is that things will not always look the way that you want them, especially early on, because you're still new. But as you're kind of moving through the process, don't be discouraged to kind of think that, hey, I'm not getting any contracts. It's hard for me to get employees. It must be me. One, having that thought process is defeatful and it hurts you, but also everybody else is in that same place. Everybody else is in that same place. Because that's what's happening in the industry. So it's not as specific as you realize. And when you really set your mind to the thought process of failure is not an option, this has to work, then you really go at it a lot more than you realize. And that for me was really why the whole 16-hour days was a thing. 6:30 a.m. to probably about 11 or so was what I did for our first 12 months. And even though I was heavily sleep deprived, the enthusiasm and the eagerness and the enjoyment of meeting the goals and hitting goals and hiring people and having them go to work and getting new clients really became the motivation. It really fed my spirit in a way that I didn't have a problem getting up at 6:30. I'm gonna do it again, and I'm gonna do it again. So just remember that. The next question is, what are some things that I myself can do versus outsourcing? And how do I really determine what that should be and what that should not be? So early on, I tell people who who are really specifically any newbie, but specifically those who are running solo, to really do a SWOT analysis, which is essentially strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, but more specifically on the strengths and weakness side of the SWOT analysis to determine, hey, what am I really good at? What can I do effortlessly? I love doing social media. I can post, I can market, I can sell anything, versus where do I struggle? Don't really like numbers, struggle with having to meet tight deadlines, whatever that may be for you. You really want to have a clear understanding of it, especially if it's an ongoing activity. An example for us, originally we created a website ourselves. The second time around, I created it myself. So I am nobody's tech guru, but I knew that I could, over a weekend, sit down and master the website in the way that I wanted to. And I also knew that in creating a website, that it serves a purpose, but it didn't need to be a site that was so involved that it couldn't evolve into another site, which of course it has. So I think this is the second website that someone else did. But it allowed me to grow and learn. And once you create a website, most of the time that site stays up for some time. So in doing that, I saved myself a couple of bucks, and hopefully the business as well, and taking that weekend to do the site and kind of using the resources like Canva and other, resources and stuff like that that had information to help me get started prior to paying, instead of paying someone to do it for me. And with the website, that's not as big of a deal because it's a one-time thing for, like, maybe you keep the website for 2 years or 18 months versus some other things that I'm going to touch on. So if you can do your website yourself, I would encourage you to. HR, human resources and payroll. So this can be pretty complicated. And if it's not something that you or a business partner or someone that's working in the business has experience on, it's definitely not something that I would do trial and error on. And if you're not willing to spend the time to get up to speed on it, this is something that I would consider outsourcing. Recruiter, sales, and marketing. So I'm going to break it into two sections. First, recruiters. I think as a NOSA myself, and even for you guys, that you're the best salesperson. You have the passion and commitment, the understanding of the industry, and you're the truest expert to me. So I think from a recruitment standpoint of view, early on, you should do it. You should talk to the employees. You should get a feel for interviewing, the types of questions, and how you would answer them. And I feel that same way about sales and marketing. The difference between, and I'm going to stop saying, guys, the difference between an agency that has a nurse or healthcare professional that has experience in the industry versus someone who just knows sales and marketing is wide. You can talk about acuity and rates and overtime and shortages on the weekends and night shifts and how to create block shifts and variable schedules and how to, initiate a self-scheduling app or self-scheduling tool to make sure that you're covering, the needs of your facilities and offering flexibility to schedule themselves for employees and applicants. So that's such a different conversation. And determining, kind of peeling back the layers of the needs of your clients really kind of allows you to sit out as an expert in the industry and specialize in whatever industry part specialty that you may be in. So if you're someone who's a dialysis nurse, right? That's totally different than med surg. It's very different than ED, and it's extremely different than ICU. So having a conversation with a client, with a nurse who's already had the experience in dialysis, looks very different than someone who hasn't. So for me, your website, it's something you could do. I also tell people if you have teenage kids, it's something they can do to just kind of get it started. It's usually a one-time thing. Human resources and payroll, I would consider, especially if you're running solo and not willing to get the time or take out the time to bring yourself up to speed on what it is. That's something I would definitely outsource. Recruitment, sales, and marketing, I always say do it yourself initially too, because you want to gain that experience. You never know what situation you might be in that requires that you sell your agency. And if that's something that you outsource early on, you'll miss out on that practice. You'll miss out on the practice of calling in a facility and say no, or maybe, or send me your contract. So I think that's invaluable. Contracts and insurance, these are definitely things that you should take to professionals. So you should get insurance from a broker that'll educate you and kind of explain to you why you need these different types of insurance and the level of coverage that you have. You always, always, always want to have a legal professional read over your contracts. Not only to make sure that it has specific language, but you also want to make sure that it covers any specific laws that may be in place in your state regarding contracts. And then, of course, staffing and employee relations. Again, this is something that you could outsource depending on the experience and background of yourself and any partners or groups that you're working with. And it's typically something that people outsource. So, and I think we got one more question. And as I mentioned before, if you have a question that I haven't covered in these 30 days of 30 questions, feel free to ask. I'll touch on some other questions and then part 4. I think we're only going to need to do about 2 more parts to cover all the questions for you guys. And, let us know so that we can either do some research or maybe have one of you guys share your questions and kind of go from there. So again, that's all I have. I don't think I have any more questions here. We'll have another session next Tuesday and the following Tuesday with 5 more questions. If you haven't joined us over on Facebook on the NOSA group, definitely feel free to do so. It's located here, where you can also go and subscribe to join our Facebook group. We're growing and thriving day by day. We officially hit 5,000 members on Facebook, which is so exciting. This journey started for us in 2017. And it's only really been up from there, but it's come with its own life lessons. And I just want to give other people that are interested in being a part of this industry, a leg up to really get going successfully. So that's all I have for you guys. I hope you have a terrific Tuesday and happy February 1st.